Hello, my name is Karina Sanchez. I'm a doctoral candidate in the biology program, and I worked with Lauren Benedict in the behavioral ecology lab. And today I'm going to talk about some of the data I've been collecting for my doctoral research, measuring the effects of urban characteristics on a common backyard bird. So before I begin, I would really like to thank everybody who has made this project possible. This has been a huge collaborative effort between undergraduate field assistants, UNCO faculty, and all of my collaborators. And of course, I'd really like to thank the School of Biology and all of my funding sources who have made this project possible. So let's get started by talking about anthropogenic or human activities. So these are activities that we know are altering habitats around the world. And the alterations to these habitats are introducing novel challenges to wildlife. And that might look something like novel predators, such as domesticated house cats, or novel resources, such as the extra food that we toss into our garbage. Now, wildlife are responding to these changes, and scientists are beginning to observe novel behaviors in these urban environments. So before I go any further, let's talk about what that word urban means. When you picture urban, what do you see? Some of you might see lots of concrete. Some of you might see buildings and skyscrapers. Maybe you think of all the traffic in the city or noise and light pollution. Or maybe you think of all of the people that crowd these urban environments. Well, if you think of any of these things, you would not be wrong. All of these are what we call urban characteristics, and they come together to create these environments. Now, just because many urban environments have these characteristics, that doesn't mean that urban is the same around the world. We would all agree that the city of Hong Kong is an urban space and the city of Denver is an urban space, but they are not the same. And that's because environments are dynamic. They take all of these characteristics and different amounts and they come together to create environments. So this is why it's so important that we actually study how each of these characteristics might be affecting wildlife. So when it comes to studying the effects of urbanization on wildlife, scientists have studied a lot of communication via bird song. And you might be wondering, why bird song? Well, bird song is a pretty big deal, especially for these songbirds, because they use it to attract and retain mates. They use it to defend their territories and their resources. And ultimately, it contributes to their reproductive success, which is the goal in life, to be able to pass your genes on to the next generation with your offspring. So this behavior is very important to these organisms. And scientists have found that songbirds are changing their songs in urban areas. They're changing characteristics such as the frequency or the pitch at which they sing at, and they're changing the time of the day that they sing. So some birds are singing earlier into the day, and some birds are singing later into the day. So when it comes to studying how these songs are changing, scientists have taken a couple of approaches. These are the most common. So many scientists have studied the effects of noise on birdsong. Others have started to look at the effects of light, and others look at the effects of landscape. Now, while my research actually incorporates all three of these characteristics, for the sake of time, because I only have 10 minutes, I'm only going to talk about the effects of landscape on American robins, songs, and reproductive success. So all of my work takes place in Weld County, Colorado. This is a map of Weld County. Right here in the center, all of this red, that's the city of Greeley. So many people might not think that the city of Greeley is very urban. Well, this map, what it shows is the red equals developed land. So the darker the red, the more developed land. And what you can see here is there's a lot of red in this area. So Greeley is pretty urban. So all of these squares on this map are going to be sites that I'm going to be presenting data for today. So you can see that some of my sites land right in the center of this red or developed area, and some of my sites are more on the outskirts. So that means that some sites look like this. This is Island Grove Park. It's got tons of concrete, and some of my sites look like this. This is Pawnee National Grassland. It's very natural. So I wanted to ask two questions for this presentation today. So the first one is, do urban landscapes affect songs of American robins in Weld County? And I hypothesized that they would. Specifically, I hypothesized that in urban spaces, songs would have a higher minimum frequency. So that's the pitch at which they're singing. And this is based off of a lot of the literature. My second question was, do urban landscapes affect nest fate and brood size? And I wanted to ask this because of how closely tied birdsong is to their reproductive success. And I hypothesized that there would be a negative effect on nest fate and brood size. So I go out and I track birds. I do that using a mist net and a speaker. So I play their bird song and they get curious and they fly over and get caught in my net. And once I have them in my net, I can attach identifying markers to their legs. So over here I have a USGS national band, and then I have these colored bands on their feet. And what's so great about this is that we can use different color combinations for different individuals. And that way we can actually tell them apart in the field. And that comes in handy when we want to record their songs, which I do. So we go out and I take this big microphone and I record birds in the field. And because I have those identifying markers on their legs, I can be sure that I'm recording a different male, and I can be sure that I have independent samples. So once I have their songs, I analyze them in a program called Raven Pro. It looks like this. So this is a spectrogram or a visualization of the American robin song, or some notes from their song. On the x-axis is going to be time, on the y-axis is frequency, or that pitch that they sing at. So we draw these squares around these notes, or syllables, and the program takes some measurements for us. The most common are maximum frequency, so the highest pitch they're singing, and minimum frequency, or the lowest pitch that they are singing. Now I have a program on my website, urbanbirdner.com, where the public can go and report nests in their yard, and that allows me to go and monitor them from the egg stage all the way to the fledgling stage and collect data on nest fate and brood size. Finally, I use USGS National Land Cover Database layers in ArcMap, and I use zonal statistics to create a ranking system of urbanness. So this incorporates human population size, developed land, and impervious surface. So the higher the number in the system, the more urban. So let's jump into my results. This is my data on landscape and song. So on the x-axis is going to be that ranking system of urbanness, and then on the y-axis is going to be frequency in hertz. So on my minimum frequency graph, you can see that the numbers are going to be lower because it's the lower end of the song, and the maximum frequency, the numbers are going to be higher because it's the higher end of the song. And what you can see if you look at the minimum frequency graph is that there's no real trend going on here. I'm not really seeing any effect of that landscape on their minimum frequency. And we see the same thing with maximum frequency. I ran some linear mixed models on this data and I found no effect of landscape that was significant. So they're not changing the pitch at which they sing at across any of these areas. When it came to nest success, again, we have that ranking score on the x-axis and the number of nestlings here on the y-axis. No big trends going on here. So landscape did not affect the number of nestlings that were being produced in these nests. When it comes to nest fate, all of our birds were very successful. I shouldn't say all of them, but 23 out of 30 were very successful. We only had 7 fail, and this nest fate was not affected by landscape. So that's a pretty high success rate, actually. When it came to my hypotheses, I didn't find any support for either of them, which is interesting because other scientists and other research has found that American robins specifically are affected by urban landscape. And many of these actually take place in more older and larger cities, such as Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. So what's going on in Wells County? Perhaps there's just no selective pressure for altering their songs. Maybe birds in Weld County just don't have to do that. And that might be because of their life history here in Weld County. And maybe Greeley just isn't urban enough. And if not, that begs the question as to when do behavioral changes begin in wildlife? And also there just might not be a big predation rate going on across Weld County to really affect the nest success of these birds. So my takeaway for today is that urban landscapes do not affect American robin songs, their nest fate, or their brood size in Weld County, but this is only a newly developed area, and landscape is only one urban characteristic. We should also be thinking about others like noise and light. So with that, I'd like to say thank you, and I'll plug my website, urbanbirdner.com, where you can report a nest if you have an American robin nesting in your yard, and I will come out and monitor that nest, and you get to see some cute baby birds.